This video is sponsored by Thunder Laser.
Today, we're going to turn these 7 plies into a fully customizable skateboard. How cool is that? In order to create a skateboard, we need to glue up our plies, shape the board, round over the edges, add finish, apply grip tape, and finally install our trucks. Okay, so most standard skateboard decks are made from 7 plies. We have 2 face plies, 3 core plies, and 2 crossband plies. For the top of our skateboard, we're going to use a face ply. This is our nicest sheet of veneer. It has a smooth side and a rough side. Now we're going to apply glue to the rough side. Next up, we're going to glue on our first core ply. This is a lot like the face ply, however, it's just not good quality. It's more of a filler. And then we'll glue on our first crossband. Now in a crossband, the grain goes in the opposite direction. So that when we glue our skateboard deck together, it adds stability so our board doesn't warp or cut. Our second core, I'm actually going to use a dyed veneer. This is dyed all the way through. And what this is going to allow us to do is to create that pinstripe effect that I have on this board right here. And then we'll add another crossband, another core, and then finally our last face ply. Now for this project, I want to include an inlay of the Thunder logo on the bottom side of the board. And the way we're going to do that, we're going to take one of our face plies and I'm going to cut out the Thunder logo here and then fill in all the missing pieces using this dyed through veneer. So let's go ahead and do that now.
I'm also using a curve offset and light burn just to make sure that we don't have any gaps going our glue up. And next, we'll put our pieces where they need to be and use some painter's tape just to make sure that everything stays in place.
And now with our inlay all set up, we're finally ready for the glue up. We'll start with our first face, use some Titebond 3, and I'm going to use a foam roller to brush it on.
Now you want to make sure that you apply a thin even coat onto each veneer. Too much glue, well, you're going to get these weird glue bubbles that happen when we put them in the vacuum bag. At the same time, we need enough glue so that all of our veneers stick together.
And then finally, I'm going to pop this guy on. So now that everything's glued up, it's time to place our 7 plies into the vacuum bag. But first, I'm going to wrap the whole thing in wax paper, and that prevents our skateboard plies from getting glued to the mold. It also keeps our bag a little bit cleaner. So with the graphic facing up, we're going to place this on our foam mold. And then I'm going to place it in the vacuum bag underneath this plastic mesh.
So now I'm going to turn on my vacuum pump, and that's going to suck all of the air out of our bag, forcing our blank to adhere to the shape of our molds.
And so now I'm going to let this sit for a couple of hours, and when it's finished, our skateboard blank will be ready to be shaped. Now while our board is being pressed, I want to talk about how I create these molds. So I use a website called SkateCAD. And SkateCAD is an amazing application that allows you to create a custom mold in any style or configuration. But you could also download one of their preset models as well. And then once you download the STL, you can put a foam block on your CNC machine and carve out that mold. Now this is the default skateboard deck. It's the same one that we used to create this board here. I also wanted to mention that I'm going to be giving this board away. And the way I want to do it is I want to hear from you the coolest ways that we could possibly make a skateboard using a laser cutter. I also wanted to show you that you can get a little bit more creative with your skateboards. So this also uses the default street deck. However, this one is a mosaic. And so I laser cut all these little pieces and chamfered the edges and glued them all in. In fact, I'm going to be doing a separate video just on this process in my next video. Okay, so it's been a couple of hours, so now it's time to take our blank out of our bag. All right, so now I'm going to take off the wax paper and reveal the Thunder logo. All right, so this looks perfect. Now the next step is to shape our board, and in order to do that, I'm going to use a custom template that I cut on the Thunder laser. So this template is very helpful because it allows us to see the graphic underneath. It has a center line and then 2 lines for the nose and tail bends. So I'm going to line this up perfectly, and then I'm going to use my pencil to trace our truck holes. Okay, so now that our holes have been traced, it's time to drill out our truck holes using a 3/16 inch drill bit. But to make this even easier, I laser cut another template to make sure that everything lines up. So this is at a 1/4 inch acrylic. So I'm just gonna line up my laser cut holes with my traced holes. And then we're gonna drill out each one. Fantastic, so we have our holes here. Next, we're going to take our template again, line it up on the other side in the same position, and then we're going to trace the outline of our template. Great, so I have my line all traced out, and next up we're going to take this blank to our bandsaw and cut right outside the line. All right, cool. So now with our blank all roughed out, it's time for some sanding.
I'm going to start off by using this vertical belt sander that my shop landlord Ed gave me. He bought it from an auction, and it's awesome. And essentially, we're just going to sand to the line to make everything nice and smooth. And now I'm going to bring it over to my Hammer HS 950 to sand the sides.
So now that the profile of our board is all nice and sanded, it's time to round over the edges. And to do this, I'm going to use this specialty bit specifically for rounding over edges on a skateboard. Okay, so that looks pretty good. The next step is just to use the orbital sander to sand down this graphic to clean it up and maybe to touch up some of these rounded edges. And then after that, well, we're ready for finish, grip tape, and trucks. Okay, yeah, that looks good. So now we're ready for finish. So I applied 3 coats of finish to our skate deck, and I also countersunk holes for the trucks. Now for our grip tape, I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to use a sacrificial piece right here, and we're going to laser cut a stencil and then spray our design directly onto our grip tape. Fantastic, so let's peel this up to see how we did. Awesome, looks perfect. All right, so now it's time to apply this to our board. And starting in the middle, going to place it onto our board, and then we're just going to press it on to make sure there are no air bubbles. And then we're going to use a screwdriver to find the edge of our board. Now this part's a little bit tricky, so I'm just going to place this here like that, and on a 45-degree angle I'm going to go all the way around. Okay, so before I cut it with our box cutter, I'm going to peel up the edges just a little bit, and this will make the process a little easier. So now this is the most difficult part of the whole thing, and it takes a little bit of practice. So I want to make sure you have a clean blade in your box cutter, and essentially what we're going to do is we are going to pull the knife towards us, which I know is usually not the safest thing, but in this case it's fine. And on a 45-degree angle, you want to sweep across the entire board, making slow, smooth motions. Now, if it messes up a little bit, that's okay. Keep going, because we'll do a cleanup pass towards the end. All right, here we go. So not bad, but also not perfect. I see some areas here that need to be trimmed off and some over here. So in order to do that, I'm going to take my box cutter and I'm going to take this dull blade, flip it over so I have a nice fresh blade. You definitely don't want to do your cleanup with a dull blade because it's going to tear and rip. All right, so we are at the last step here. All we need to do now is to install our trucks. However, every step of the way I've tried to sort of marinate this with like some laser magic, so the wheels are no exception. So we're going to bring these wheels over to the laser engrave them, and then do some paint filling.
Almost done. So then we're going to take one of our bearings, loosely pop it into the wheel like that, add our spacer, and then the other bearing. Then I have this really fancy tool that kind of just presses the whole thing together. Then find something pointy and make 8 little holes. We're going to use our skate tool then to make little divots so that we know where to place the screws. I'll lightly hammer each screw into place, and then we're going to move on to the trucks and the wheels. So let's loosen that nut, and then you're also going to find 2 washers. Let's place one washer back on, followed by the wheel. Add the other washer, and then loosely tighten the nut. Then using our skate tool again, well, I'm just going to tighten it so that the wheel moves freely. That's too tight. Let's loosen it up a little bit. Ah, that's much better. Now we'll add our spacers, install our trucks, and to finish things up, let's use our skate tool to tighten up all of the nuts. And now, the board is done.